Welcome back, everyone, to Ludus Infinium. Today we're going to be doing the second part of the Horus Heresy Book 1, Horus Rising. When last we left it with Garvio Loken and Nero Vipus heading inside the palace, and they were just inside of it. So at the beginning of part 2, we're introduced to a remembrancer, Mercity Alatin, who is having Loken retell the story of how Horus killed the Emperor. And she comes in, and this is actually a good part of the book where it shows the disconnect between humans and astartes. She comes in, like most humans would, asking, will you tell me the story about how Horus slew the Emperor? And the book tells how Loken is kind of put off by the way she says Horus instead of the War Master or the Primarch, or without any kind of title or any outward respect. It also gives a good description of Astartes as well. It mentions how he has a ribless torso, which is something I don't think a lot of people realize, or at least they aren't that deep into the lore to know, is that they just have a solid bone covering their chest. They don't have ribs, where one of the organs is put into them, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the osmodulum. It increases their bone growth, and it causes their rib cage on their torso to be basically one solid bone. And this also helps implement the black carapace, which allows them to interface more readily with their power armor. Something else I would like to point out that I really love about these books is how they present the Space Marines, even though they aren't human, technically. They're like superhuman. They still give them human characteristics. For example, one of my favorite ones that they have done throughout the book is sarcasm. When Mercity Alatin asks Loken what did he find when he got into the palace, he answers, the Invisibles. To which she asks, why are they called that? And his response is the best response I could have imagined, and that was, because we couldn't see them. And then in the previous part, I'm pretty sure I mentioned how Ezekiel Abaddon challenges Loken who could get to the false emperor first, and he even says, "I'm playing with you, Loken." And it's really cool. I like it. I like how they show in 30K how the Space Marines are more than just, even though they are zealots to an extent, they aren't they have human characteristics. That's what I love so much about them, is that in 40K, I mean, you do have cases, you have, it's a Black Templar guy, and I can't remember his name, but he literally shouted at a woman and brought her back to life. You have characters like that in their Space Marines. You have characters who do all this insane shit and feel nothing, but in the Horus Heresy books, it portrays them in a completely different light. For instance, you have Tariq Torgadon, who I don't know if I'll get to it in this part or if it's actually in the next one, but he just screws around with Loken's mind, and it is beautiful. He's like, yeah, I nominated you to the Mournival. Yeah. Ekadon seconded you. Wait, What? Nah, Ekadon fucking hates your ass. Nah, no, no, no. It was his boss, Abaddon. Did he really? No, no. Yeah, yeah, he did. And this is like a full-on conversation they have as they're sparring with each other, and Torgadon just keeps screwing with him, and it's so beautiful to see it because Space Marines normally aren't portrayed in that kind of light, because it is really, we got to be stoic because we're fighting for the survival of humanity, and yeah, we're big and strong. You don't really get to see the levity behind them either, and that's something I think they really missed out on. And it's just so beautiful to see it here. It's so nice. So after that scene, we get a description of the Invisibles and their weaponry. They use a cloaking technology that bends light around them, so like active camouflage from most video games. In fact, I think a really good example, if you want a video game example of it, would probably be active camouflage from Halo. That being said, they also have power weapons, and there has been a few things, a lot of things, that can get through Astartes armor, especially in 40k, but in 30k, there's an instance where they don't bring compliance to a planet, and the Imperial Guard's been fighting for months and months and months and just can't get anywhere, and they're losing troops. And they're getting attacked by small arms fire and I believe even some bigger rifles, not necessarily armor piercing, but at least bigger caliber rifles, or at least the Warhammer equivalent of that. And the Space Marines just walk through it. It doesn't do dick all to them. They kill 1,000 people with 0 casualties. It just doesn't do anything to their armor. That being said, they have what I think they describe as something very similar to a power mace. Because when the Invisible hits one of the Space Marines, the description in the book is his armor cratered like molded wax. This is Mark IV pattern Astartes armor. It's not supposed to do that at all. And there's that injury. I believe there's one that gets his leg crushed, if not completely removed. And later on, Nero Vipus, the sergeant, he gets his hand crushed, and to the point where he can't even remove the gauntlet, so he just cuts it off with a chainsword. So they're proving to be a hard foe to fight, even for Astartes. One, because you can't see them, and two, their weapons are devastating, even in again, Mark IV power armor. However, here's where the drawback is. They aren't that well armored at all. They get found, they get dead quick. There's a scene where Loken he's not swinging about wildly. He has an idea of where the guy is. He just starts swinging in that direction. I guess you'd say swinging around wildly. And he just like eviscerates him with one slash. Just like, oh look, his camouflage isn't working. Found him. Now he's just like limping off, dying. So it does come at a price. They can hit hard, and they're hard to be seen. But as soon as they get found out, they're as good as dead when put up against an Astartes. After making his way through the Invisibles, Loken climbs up the tower to confront the false emperor, and he actually has a really interesting conversation with him. And this is one of the better qualities of Garvia Loken's character. He questions almost everything. he does have loyalty to Horus and to the Emperor, but he questions if some of the things they do is too extreme. For instance, he talks about how is fighting these humans right? Couldn't we have just left them alone? And he has this conversation with the false emperor and says as much. He's like, well, you could have just left us alone. You could have passed by and that be that. And Loken's response to this is, yes, but we came here to give you the truth. Because the truth is amoral. And the Emperor says something really deep. He says, if you act on the truth being amoral, this makes you immoral. Which in some cases, like what happened here, is pretty true. I mean, looking at it not from the Warhammer perspective, but looking at it from like a modern day perspective, there was no need for them to call it what it was, butcher as many people as they did. And they could have just, been like, okay, we have no reason to be aggressive towards y'all. You have no reason to be aggressive towards us. So we'll let y'all live in peace until one of us pisses off the other. Whatever. Which realistically isn't what happened. What happened was they sent down a delegation. And I mentioned this in the first part, but just a quick recap of one of the members of the Mournfall. He is a captain who is really close to Horus, and he basically has the conversation of like, no, I'm come from the real emperor, and the false emperor, getting kind of tweaked at this, kills him. So it was sparked off, it really was, but you could argue it was because he offended the emperor, you could argue the emperor overreacted, whatever. But realistically, there was no reason why they couldn't have just said, yeah, we don't have to screw with you. We could just go on our way. And this question gets brought up across the first 3 books a lot, with Loken specifically, because he starts to question how far is too far with some of the methods that the Luna Wolves, later called the Sons of Horus, end up taking. But I will get to those when I get to them. But this is the start of it, and this is a really cool thing to look at, because it again shows that even though he is fiercely loyal, he's not blindly loyal. After the false emperor has this conversation with Loken, he demands to surrender to Horus. After he does this, the Catalan Reaver squad comes up, and the leader, who is the first captain under Abaddon, it's a little strange to hear how it's kind of worded, because Abaddon is the first captain of the Luna Wolves, and this is the first captain under Abaddon, so it confuses me to an extent. Ekadon, who basically says, we got the false emperor, we're going to bring him in now. We've won. Woohoo! To which Loken says, no, he wants to surrender directly to Horus himself. And he calls up to Horus, and Horus basically is like, okay, fine, cool. I got nothing better to do. I'll do that. I'm not trying to be War Master or anything. So yeah, fuck it. And while they're waiting on Horus, Loken notices a shimmer on the golden throne that's on top of the tower beside the Emperor. And as he moves closer to it, the false Emperor goes to stop him and takes a bolt pistol round to the back of the chest and has a new cavity to breathe out of, quite frankly. It opens him up like a can of tuna. And at that point, the real fake emperor, who was sitting on the golden throne the entire time, activates a force field slash repulsor field that literally just blows the Astartes off the roof. Ekadon and his Catchline Reavers get pretty much thrown off the roof, but because their Astartes and power armor somehow are just fine, Loken, because he was so close to the Golden Throne, is pushed back but not thrown back. And around the same time this is all happening, a huge, I'm going to say this again with about as much emphasis as I can, a really, really big, really huge character teleports in, Horus. And to give you an idea, the Ekadon and his men are assault marines with jetpacks and Mark IV power armor, so they weigh a lot, and it basically just flicked them off the roof. Horus is completely unfazed by it. Completely. It does not move him in the slightest. In fact, he just calmly raises his storm bolter and takes one shot. And this is the point where Loken, who's now at the edge, is about ready to fall off, and something just kind of grabs his arm, and he looks up, and it's another arm, because dramaticizing. And he looks up and he says, "Lupercal." To which Horus says, "No need to be so formal, Loken. Just call me Horus." And he lifts him back up over the lip so he can lay on the roof, as it were. And this scene does have a beautiful piece of imagery where it talks about Horus leaving the dead emperor on the golden throne, which is kind of like a combination of spoiler foreshadowing and just fourth wall breaking, quite frankly, at some points. But that was part 2 of Horus Rising. I hope everyone enjoyed. I really like these books. If you get the chance, I recommend getting either the book or the audiobook, whichever you prefer. They are written very, very well. And I will see everybody in the next one. Bye!